Welcome back, everybody, to the School Leadership Show. This is Mike Dowdy. Apologies for my absence. Jen has been carrying the water for several episodes now. So thank you, Jen, while I've been off doing things that are not as exciting as I'd like them to be, but that's okay. And we have a very special guest with us today. Jen is going to introduce to us Coach Carlos Johnson. She'll tell us a little bit about his background, and then we're going to get into
Yeah.
some of his work. So
Yeah.
thank
Well,
you,
first, great to
Jen.
have you back, Mike. Always the level of energy always goes up when you're in the Zoom room. So, yeah, no, I'm excited. This month, I'm going to be featuring in the main idea Coach Carlos's book, Power Engage: 7 Power Moves for Building Strong Relationships to Increase Engagement with Students. I have summarized 2 other books that I can think of off the top of my head about student engagement, one by Robert Marzano, one by Fisher and Fry, and they're very different. This one is really focuses on relationships and mindset, so I'm excited to hear more about it. Coach Carlos, he was a school administrator. In fact, he led the Male Leadership Academy in Charlotte, North Carolina. He fulfilled his promise of 1 year's worth of growth for all 100% of his students, and they all did that. I don't know how many school leaders have 100% success. He's also had a history of turning around 3 failing schools simply by focusing on the school's culture and the homeschool relationships. I really want to hear about that. Now he is an author, motivational speaker, a workshop trainer. So I'm really excited to have you here. Welcome, welcome, Coach Carlos.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Well, student engagement is so important. Obviously, we're losing our students. We've been losing them maybe at a higher rate since the pandemic. I haven't done any research on that, but I'm hearing a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, could you tell us one of the stories about one of these 3 failing schools that by focusing on the culture and the school home relationship, you were able to turn it around?
Yeah. It's probably one of my uh proudest moments is just being able to get in because it's not always that successful. Every school that I've worked with, we have not had that kind of success. But we have been able to move the needle in most schools that we work with. So probably the proudest moment was with the Male Leadership Academy, primarily because it was prior to me and my team arriving. It was pretty much a dumping ground for boys who could not manage their behavior and performance inside the gen ed population in the schools they were at. So it was the school that if you couldn't make it there, it wasn't really an officially an alternative school, but it became that because if a boy couldn't make it somewhere, the word on the street was send him over to the Male Leadership Academy. And that's what happened. So when I got there, it was that kind of population, that kind of culture, that kind of mindset. And what we begin to do is what I recommend all schools to do. And the three indicators that when I'm doing school culture, if I'm doing turnaround work, I always look at in any school environment. And that is 3 years of evidence of enrollment. So I'm looking at how people are recruiting. And if you're a school leader, I beg you to look at these 3 indicators as if they're on the stock market. First of all, what's your 3 years of recruitment data? Second of all, what's your 3 years of retention data? And not just retention with students, but also with teachers. Is the turnover high with your instructional team? And then lastly, what's the response to quality instruction? And if you look at those 3 indicators, it will tell you a lot about where your culture is. So I always focus on those 3. We were able to do that in those schools and was very, very, I won't say easily, but we were able to turn the Male Leadership Academy into a school that was outperforming their neighbors.
That's great. So you have this dashboard. You're looking at these three indicators. I'm assuming they were
Yeah.
not good.
Right.
Where did you start? Like, what did you roll up your sleeves and start with?
The first one, and I go in that order. I start with recruitment. What's going on? Are these the same kids who are here? Are we able to keep a constant flow of kids? If not, why? Recruiting tells you a lot about what the public is saying about your product. Tells you a lot unless you are, some school districts are blessed enough that if you live at this address, you must go to this school. So if that's the case, then the school leader there has a little bit more flexibility, a little less pressure on recruiting. But if you're in a very competitive educational market, charter schools, private schools, and now what we know about the disappearance of students is there have been a lot of pods opening up, educational pods, a lot of private schools opening up. So a lot of schools are losing that way. So if you're in a very competitive market, then you've got to understand what your recruiting numbers are and why they are that way. Let's take it out of education. Let's just say we've got local cleaners in our neighborhood, and we're cleaning people's clothes. How are we getting our customers? And where are they coming from? And what are the streets saying about your cleaners? And that's how I look at schools. So that was my first move. Where are these kids coming from? Why are they coming? What are the streets saying about our school? And when I got that data, I said, "Oh, wow, interesting,
So,
interesting."
so coach, let me push on that a little bit. So, how do you
Yeah.
get the data from what the streets are saying about the school?
Oh, just talk. Just and not just the people who are coming in your building. I mean, get outside of your building and talk with some folk. Just ask them. Oh, yes, I'm at the school down the street. Oh, I'm thinking about enrolling my son. Have you heard anything about it? Oh man, they are eager to tell you the dirt on anything. It's almost like if you're a believer in scripture, what it talks about, even Jesus said, who do people say that I am? you know, and so I would ask school leaders to do the same is to go out into the streets, interview your parents, past and present, and say, who do people say we are? And it was overwhelming, Mike, that the community, the people that were currently in our school, we were the dumping ground. We were the kids, we were the building where you just drop kids off because, hey, nobody else wanted them.
Well, and
Well,
I
Mike,
imagine too that was probably the last stop for some kids
Yes,
before
sir.
they headed into the criminal justice system or the
Yes,
juvenile
sir.
justice
yeah.
system.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, so you get a sense of the lay of the land, what people are saying about the school, the kids who are coming in, start to figure that out. That's the recruitment piece. So, talk about retention because
Yeah.
if you're in a charter school, that's one thing, right? Like people can vote with their feet, right?
Right.
If you're in a public school, like you said, you got to go to school where you live unless you
Yeah.
move.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
a lot of
and can I
cases,
connect this to the book here? Let's connect it with the
yeah.
book because I assume that's part of it. So,
It is.
you have
Yeah.
seven power moves in the book, and the first two, really sort of lay out the larger inspiration and ideas. So, you say there's one thing that can change everything in education,
Yeah.
relationships,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Relationships. So
That's
that's
right.
one of your first chapters. You talk about relationships. So can you tell us a little bit about this part of the book about what relationships, how that's connected to student engagement, and if you employed that in your
Yeah.
turnaround situation?
Yeah, well, actually, that ties right into to that question about retention. So, relationships, it's very key to um, transforming that culture. Because if I'm a kid um, who is not performing well academically, behaviorally, um, then either I truly have a cognitive issue, there is something physiologically wrong with me, where I need a different set of support mechanisms, or it's probably something more manageable. My organizational skills, my social emotional skills, my family structures is something probably around there. It's not that I can't do the work. I've just got to figure out what's the best way to do it and be properly motivated and inspired to do so. What I found out very quick with John Hattie's research, with Dr. Muhammad's research, and plenty more, is that just basic human kindness. Kids are smart. If there's something a kid can pick up from an adult, like you don't like me. You know, you, I don't, you didn't say it. You didn't come out and curse me out. You didn't do any of that. But there's something about you and I that we're just not connecting. And when a kid feels that, they vote with their heads. They vote with their behaviors. They may not leave the school, but they leave your classroom, emotionally and cognitively. And when that happens, it's going to hit your retention. And when that happens, it's going to have an issue with your teaching staff and the culture. So that's why I say the first thing we've got to deal with is what's the relationships like in this building.
So and I'm curious too. So, you come into a building as you described, right? And, it's clearly challenging on the face. No question. Nobody would argue with that. So, and you said it, right? It's amazing how many people in education legitimately don't like children. Okay. All right. So that aside, so you come in and I'm assuming you didn't get to pick your staff. So how'd you navigate that?
Yeah, that's always tricky. That's always tricky because you're exactly right. You don't get to pick your team. And just like students, sometimes adults just need the proper relationship with their head of school, with their school leader. They need to know that you believe in me. Just like kids are saying, teacher, do you believe in me? Teachers are saying, principal, superintendent, do you believe in me? And so you have to go in and assess your team on, they're already been assessed in terms of their content. That's how they got the job. They've been certified and highly skilled, all that good stuff. But what very few leaders either take the time to do or have the skill to do is not only measure their staff's ability in the content areas, but can they connect to kids?
Yeah,
And
and I think you have a tool in the book to do. You have two interesting tools in the book. One, Mike and I are former math teachers, so we always like a good matrix or a good
yeah,
graph. So for people who are just listening, Coach Carlos has this wonderful matrix on page 2 of the book, where on the x-axis he has engagement, like increasing engagement and
yeah,
decreasing engagement.
yeah,
And I'm sorry, this is a matrix for teacher-student relationships. That
right.
and
Mhm,
then the y-axis is control, from less control to more control. And
mhm,
so I'm going to describe a little bit what I see here. And I could see you taking your idea, Coach Carlos, of assessing your teachers based on where they fit in this graph, right?
right.
So if there's very low engagement but high control, that's a punitive
Yeah,
classroom, right? That's a teacher with a
that's it.
punitive approach to teacher-student relationships.
That's right.
If you have low engagement but low control, that's permissive, right? That's a
That's
permissive
right.
classroom. Students aren't learning as much.
Yeah,
If you have high engagement but low control,
yeah,
right? That's the
yeah,
like, oh, I want to be your friend kind of teacher,
yeah.
detached one. But then if you would talk about quadrant 1, where it's high control but high engagement, and you call that performance based, that's the kind of relationship we want, not
Yeah.
besties, but we
Right,
want a performance based relationship with
right.
our students. Can you talk about that term?
Sure. It came to me one day. I don't remember the day or what I was doing, whatever, but it came to me that um everything is about performance. That's what we do. I mean, the glasses that you have on, Jen, right now, it's about performance. Your relationship with your glasses is about performance. The headset that you have on, Mike, right now, the relationship with that headset is performance. The minute that that headset starts performing the way that you agreed with it to perform, the headset's done with. The minute those glasses don't perform the way we want them to perform, we get rid of them. So everything is about performance. And so it occurred to me that our human relationships are the same way on different levels. If you're married, it's about performance. If you've got children, it's about performance. And so the teacher student relationship is not exempt from that principle. Um, and it's okay to say that I'm in a relationship with you, young man, young lady, but it's a performance-based one. We can still have fun together, but the way you're going to evaluate me is my performance. The way I'm going to evaluate you is your performance. And that's okay. Parents are the same way. Parents, I'm going to evaluate you the same way. You have a performance-based relationship with this school. We don't have to be friends. We don't have to love one another. Let's just respect one another to do the job that we agreed to do. And here's what I signed up to do. Your child signed up to do this. And a lot of folk don't like to talk about it, but mom, dad, grandma, uncle, you guys signed up to do something too. And
Well,
so yeah,
before we leave relationships, you run I don't know if it's online or in person, but you run a parent training program called Power Parenting You. So I don't know how many leaders train the parents in their school. Can you tell us one or two things that you do to train parents to so you can increase that student engagement and success?
yeah, we could not win at any of the schools I've worked with and the ones I'm working with now without parent engagement. Not involvement, but engagement. And I encourage leaders out there to get that distinction between involvement versus engagement. And involvement is what we too many of us run our buildings on. So let's get the parents involved. Let's get them involved. Invite them here to be a part of this. Invite them here to put out chairs. Invite them here to do that. But engagement is when they have some skin in the game, some stake in the game. So, parent engagement for me is in any school I work with is finding out what I call meaningful minimums. What are the meaningful minimums in this school? And they might be different from school to school. But once you find out what those meaningful minimums are, you begin systematically getting parents to be engaged in that culture with their meaningful minimums, and that's a game changer. Just those finding out what those meaningful minimums are, and that's what we do very good with schools.
So, Coach, give us some examples of meaningful minimums. I hear that, and I think standards, but like, tell us more about what you mean.
Yeah, so every school has a instructional culture, leadership culture, student culture, and a parent culture. So the simple question I ask is based on the parent avatar that you have here, the group avatar, the group dynamics, based on that, and we do a great exercise just to create a parent avatar. And then once we create that parent avatar, then we ask ourselves as a group, okay, what are the three things that are meaningful as it relates to academic performance? Meaningful, but what's the minimum they can do? I don't start with anything high, because you start high, then you start excluding the rest of your parents. But what's the baseline that the majority of our parents should be able to do? And so you ask that question, and then teachers start saying, "Hey, they can do this, they can do that," and then we narrow it down to three things. So a list that we came up with, I'm working with the school out in Antioch, California now. And the list that they came up with was our parents can sign in to their SIS system, their parent portal, their student information system, the parent portal. That's the least that they can do is sign into that. Parents can sign the homework log or whatever the log that comes in, the student planner. They can sign off on that every day. And then thirdly, meaningful minimum. Make sure we have your updated contact information. Now, for some people, depending on what district you're in, you're saying, what? Updated contact information? Sign in to the parent portal? And I mean, that's simple. Yeah, but for some districts, that's not so simple. You look at your parent database and 40% of your numbers aren't correct. 40% of your emails aren't correct. And school leaders, teachers out there right now, if 40% of your contact information is not updated, you don't have a performance-based relationship. Parents are not engaged. And I guarantee you your culture can be transformed with some small, easy steps.
I like that. It's very reasonable. And I like that there's such a focus on the parent relationships, because you're certainly all about relationships being key.
Yeah.
In addition to relationships, you talk a bit about mindset, and you say that to get the greatest impact from the relationships that you have with students, the
Yeah.
teacher needs to have the mindset of a coach. And we're on
Yeah.
Zoom, and your name here is Coach Carlos. So can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about the mindset of the coach, why you call yourself Coach Carlos, and why is that so important for teachers in terms of student engagement?
Yeah. Great question. I mean, all speakers out here have a lot of different names, me included, and I intentionally chose Coach Carlos because Coach is not just a cute rhyme with Carlos, but I really wanted to have the mindset of a coach. When I go into the classroom, when I go into a building, I want to be more of a coach than a teacher. I want to be more of a coach than an instructor. And I'm not asking anyone to turn in their teaching credentials or their leadership credentials. What I'm asking everyone to do is add to it a coach's mindset. You see, a coach does this. If a coach is coming out of a team mindset, then what they're doing is they're assessing their team roster and they're looking at the gifts and talents of every person on their team roster. And what they're saying is, how do I get the best out of him? He can't jump high. He can't run fast. He may not hit the ball as far as everybody else, but there's something he can do that I can get out of him. A coach thinks that way. And once you begin to looking through the lens of a coach, what you begin to do is look at your individuals, teachers, your parents, your staff, as to what assets they bring to the table. And then you begin to develop them through that asset. And same thing with students. If teachers were looking at their class as a team, they would look at each individual member, each teammate as, how do I develop that one? What contributions can they bring to the team?
I like that because we've heard a lot about coaching in terms of pedagogy and instruction, right? The best way to teach kids is not to tell them what to do, right? If I'm a tennis coach, right? Andre Agassi's coach, I'm
Yeah,
not going to sit there with my hand on the racket while he sits on
right.
the side, right? I'm
That's
going to
right.
put him on the court, right?
That's right.
So the same thing with instruction, but I like that you're thinking about it in terms of relationships.
Yeah,
And another great chart that you have in your book on page 23 is about the three different kinds of mindset. So the coach mindset as compared to, and you describe some teachers have a culture driven
yeah,
mindset, right?
yeah,
Where basically they connect with the kids who are willing to comply with the culture or connect with the culture, right? So that's not all of
yeah.
them.
Right,
And so you've got the culture driven mindset teachers, and then you've got the competence driven mindset. So they're going to connect with the kids who are doing well academically or believe they can do well, but there's still a lot
right,
of other kids in your class. So
right.
you describe the coach driven mindset as just what you said, right? Meeting kids where
Yeah,
they are and finding out and believing in them and coaching them where they are. And that reaches all kids in the classroom.
Yeah, and to your point, because if those who were listening early on when you said I got 100% growth for my kids, I know some people say, yeah, right. Yeah. Well, that's the rubric that we use. We've had several, but our bottom line rubric, and I mean, man, leaders, please hear me on this one. One of the things that we did that really transformed our school is that we signed a contract with our families, and basically it said, if your child is here every day, on time, and willing to learn, they will get at least 1 year's growth. You give me 185 days, I'll give you 1 year's growth.
Well, and it goes back to what you said, coach, right? Isn't that the promise of performance that the relationship is based on?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That is it right there. And the way we were able to do that is I didn't get 100% kids at reading at grade level. What I got was 100% of my kids got a year's growth. And it's just, and that's all we're talking about. 100% of my kids who gave me 185 days. Now, there were some kids who didn't give me 185 days. So I couldn't give you your growth. I mean, I couldn't do it. My team couldn't do it. But if you have a competent team who has a child in front of them for 185 days, why is it so hard to say that I'll give you what you paid for?
It isn't. But see, here's the thing that I wonder about too. When you're in a private school, right? And you only eat what you kill, right? So,
Right.
you gotta, it's a terrible metaphor.
No, it's a great metaphor. No.
Right. And whereas, you're in a public school, well, I don't have any choice over who comes here, and nobody
Yeah.
really has a choice.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I think that in a lot of cases forces some creativity and some entrepreneurialism that might not be required in a public school because people feel like they don't need to pay attention because those kids have to come anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. See, and that gets back to the mindsets because you're absolutely right. If I have a culture mindset, then as long as you kick it with me the way I like to be kicked with, as long as you talk with the dialect that I like to talk with, as long as you have the blue eyes or the skin color or you have all that good stuff, then you and I can vibe because I have that culture mindset. If I have a competence mindset, I've already ascertained what kids in this classroom are going to win and which ones are going to lose. I already know because you only come from a single parent home, you've got a disability, what have you. But if if you have a coach mindset, all you're saying is, yeah, you come from a single parent home. I'm a sixth grade teacher. You're reading on the third grade level. Okay, you give me 185 days, I'm going to get you at least from third grade level to a fourth grade level because you've been here for 185 days. You're learning. We're going to have some fun. Then you're measuring yourself that way, and you're not going in dissecting who the winner and the losers are from day one. And if when I can get teachers to buy into that, um, they feel a lot better. I mean, by and large, teachers want kids to win. They want to teach. You don't get into this game for money. You just don't. You get in this game because you love to do this. So it's not hard if you can explain it to them that, hey, you win too.
Well, and I think you make a great point, right? Your origin is not your destiny. And
Yeah.
getting teachers and staff members in that mindset of, yeah, we know what the early childhood longitudinal study says about kids
Right.
who only have one parent or whose
Yeah.
mother doesn't even have a high school education. We know what the big numbers say,
Yeah.
but getting people into that mindset of let me really find out where you are and take
Yeah.
you from where you are to the
Yeah.
next place, right? Like, how do you help people internalize that?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's more so uncovering the gunk that education has poured on top of them all these years, restoring them back to their first love. And that's why the first power move is really looking at yourself. It's just because if I can't get you to the mindset of believing that you are great as a leader or as an instructor, then everything else I talk to you about is going to be infinitely harder. So if I can get you first to believe that, hey, you got into this game because you love kids. You got into this game because you wanted to transform minds. There's an activity I do in PDs. One of the first things I do is I ask everybody in the room to just close your eyes, and we're all standing up, and everybody's eyes are closed. And I just take them through a quick NLP exercise, neuro linguistic programming, and I just ask them to neuro meaning the brain. Linguistic is what you say, and then programming is programming your brain by what you say. It's like morning affirmations. So one of the things I have them do is just, okay, close your eyes, and what I want you to do is get in your mind's eye the face and the name of a current or past student. And it's quiet for a second. Everybody's eyes are closed. And then open your eyes. Tell me who you saw. And everybody is like, I remember Michael. I saw Amy. I saw Kathy. I saw Timothy. I saw this. And we begin to just take off all the data that's about. I don't want you all to hear any data I'm going to say right now. Don't listen to any data. This is not about data. It's not about research. I want you to humanize what you're doing. And when they put a human face and name to the strategies, they can get back to the place where, hey, this is about why I got into it. I got into it because I wanted to see the light bulb come on with kids. I got into it because I wanted to transform my neighborhood. And most teachers, that's where they are. So when we really take them through the psychology of engagement, the practices of engagement, they typically understand the power of performance-based relationships.
Coach, that's super cool. I've never heard it approached that way. That's pretty neat.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thank
sharing
you.
that.
No, thank you. Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to share, we talked a little bit about your first few power moves that, focus on relationships, the right, coach mindset, and then you shared, about teachers and their high why. You have a few others. I'll just list what they are, and if you want to leave people with one strategy, something teachers could try tomorrow.
Yeah.
You share in the book about students being plugged into their high why or their purpose.
Yeah.
You talk about having cooperative competition in classrooms.
Yeah.
Parents as partners, you already talked about. You talk about helping live wire boys use their power for good.
Yeah.
You talk about measuring student engagement. Maybe the measuring, since our audience is leaders. I don't know. Do you want to share one strategy from these areas before we end?
Yeah. I like them all. The book is set up so that you can only use one. You can use two. You can use all of them together. They're not connected, so they can be used separately. But one of the ones that I really enjoy seeing, and if you ever walk into a building where this is happening, you're on fire. And that is bringing competition to the classroom. Now, I got to say to you guys that when I first introduced this to my publisher, they weren't happy about it, because competition for a lot of educators brings up this vision of bullying, or if Michael loses, then that means Marcus is, he won, and if Marcus wins, that means Michael lost, and I hate to see the sad face on Michael, that kind of thing. So, but that's not the type of competition that I talk about in the book. And then secondly, at the end of the day, that's what we're educating these kids to go out and do, is to compete. I mean, they've got to compete. I mean, competition is real on every level. So, but if they do it in the context where it's safe, if they do it in the context where they can be supported emotionally, if they do it in a context where everybody can win together as a team, then it's healthy. So if I leave your listeners with anything, I would leave them with how to really run a healthy, competitive, academic based initiative, and then run it in such a way that it just brings joy to the building. And real quickly, what we do when I talk about competition and one of the power moves is all you're doing is having every student in the classroom compete against themselves, not against someone else. So what it does is it brings me as the instructor closer to you, Mike, as a student, closer to you, Jim, as a student. No one else knows what number you're going for. So we sit individually and we say, Jim, what do you want to get on this next test? Based on your last test, you got this number. What do you think we can do this time? And then you and I come up with a number. You and I come up with the number, Mike, and I do that for all of my kids. And then I take those individual numbers and get an aggregate number. So if I've got 20 kids and everybody wants to do 10 points better, that gives me 200 points. That 200 number is what we as a team are trying to hit. Nobody knows that, Mike, your number might be 15 points, and Jen, your number might be 7. Nobody knows that. We just know that we're going after that 200 together. And every day we're celebrating that 200. Everybody, we're making a big deal out of that 200. It's on the door, it's on the wall, it's everywhere. When we finally take that assignment, that test, then we look at where that number is, how close we are to that number. Now, let me ask you guys this. Based on the format I just explained to you, who do you think has the greatest opportunity to score more points? The kids at the top who have the highest numbers, or the ones at the bottom? Yeah.
Yeah, the kids at the bottom get to be the heroes.
That's right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they get to be the heroes. They can score 30 points easily. Whereas you're at the top already, Mike. So all I can get out of you now is 3 points.
2 or 3, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Jenn, on the other hand, she's got a way to go. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
So, Coach, you've been so generous with your time, and this is just an unbelievable conversation, and the work you've done, and just your approach to thinking about this. Jenn, it's fresh. I'm glad you brought them to us. Like, it's a lot of fun. I have one question for you though, just real quick. I'm not gonna do a whole bunch of rapid fire. Just one. Cell phones in schools. What's gonna happen this year?
Ooh. It depends on, again, the culture. If you have a technological savvy instructional team who embraces technology, then they will find a creative way to weave it into the learning experience. If you don't, then you're going to find schools having the knee-jerk reaction and just say, get rid of cell phones altogether. But I don't know how you're going to do that with our safety issues that we have. And I don't know how you're going to do that with AI now being introduced in such a large way into our districts. So my prediction is I think we're going to have to come to a happy medium and embrace technology in a way where everybody can win. That's my prediction, but
That was a very thoughtful answer, and I hope we get into some neighborhood of that.
Right.
And I do, Coach, I do appreciate it too. And from working with young men, we have a crisis among young men right now in this country. Yeah. And thank you for doing that work. And any words of wisdom or encouragement you might be able to give to folks who are in that work to help young men?
Get the data. Get your behavioral and performance data quickly and disaggregate it by gender. Look at your data, look at your referral data, look at your behavioral data, and then break it down by gender and say, okay, who's the greatest offenders of behavior in the classroom, or at least the greatest ones who are reported? Because sometimes girls can get away, because you have the gender bias in the classroom. If indeed 88% of our classrooms are being led by women, then they're looking at behavior through a female lens. I'm not saying they're doing this consciously, intentionally to report boys, but you take my son. My son in the sixth grade was, I mean, he was a big dude. He was a big dude, and he already had a deep voice. And most teachers today, when you look, if you look them up in the dictionary, there's a picture of Jen there. She's a young white female, and you've got this burly, deep voiced black dude saying, "I'm not going to sit down." Sometimes that can be kind of threatening. And so I would say look at your data and then begin to respond to what you find. The first thing I had to do at an all boys school, I asked a question. Have any of you all been trained on gender based brain activity? Do you understand how boys think and learn versus how girls think and learn? And guys, do you know that none of my team had ever heard of Michael Gurian, had never heard of Ken Reeves, any of these leaders in brain-based behavior? They had never heard of them and had never been trained on how to deal with boys and how to get them to learn the best in the classroom. They had
And
never.
this was the all male academy, right?
And it was an all male academy.
Yeah. Wow.
Like that was basic. So those two things, look at your data and get your team trained on brain-based learning. Boys and
Thanks.
girls are different. You don't
Yeah.
have to believe in my faith. I'm not asking anybody to believe the way I believe spiritually. Not asking that. Look at the science, look at the PET scans, look at the scans of what happens to a boy's brain and a girl's brain when they're reading, and it's quite different.
Well, thanks for shining a spotlight on that. Thanks for calling me young. You did hear that, Mike.
I did. I almost fact checked it, but I did. Coach Carlos.
If people want to learn more about your work, is there a website or someplace they can go to learn more about you?
Two easy ways to do it. You can go to carlosjohnson.org, or you can go to Image of Success, IMAGE of success.com. And you'll see there are three areas of work we do, and that's transforming school culture, working with parents, transforming school culture, working with your staff, or transforming school culture, working specifically with your boys.
Coach Carlos Johnson, the book is Power Engage, 7 Power Moves for Building Strong Relationships to Increase Engagement with Students and Parents. Thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time. What an amazing conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the School Leadership Show, a podcast for aspiring and practicing school leaders. Send your comments, questions, and show ideas to me, Mike, at schoolleadershipshow.com. And please consider rating the podcast in iTunes and leaving a comment. And definitely pass the show along to your colleagues.